Part 1. A Night That Changed Naval History. On the night of November 28, 1944, the Pacific Ocean was calm and dark. No massive fleets clashed. No air armadas filled the sky. No admirals stood on bridge wings watching history unfold. Instead, history was decided quietly, by a single American submarine, moving unseen beneath the waves. Just hours earlier, the largest aircraft carrier ever built, the Japanese supercarrier Shinano, had left port on her very first voyage. She was a floating giant, longer than any carrier before or since, heavier than most battleships, and designed to change the balance of the naval war. The Imperial Japanese Navy believed Shinano was nearly invincible. But somewhere ahead of her, hidden in the darkness, waited USS Archerfish, a submarine so ordinary that few had ever heard its name. By dawn, the greatest warship of its kind would be lying on the ocean floor. This is the story of how a modest submarine sank the largest aircraft carrier of World War II, on her maiden voyage. The ghost of Yamato-class. To understand why Shinano's loss was so devastating, we must go back to her origins. Shinano was not originally meant to be an aircraft carrier at all. She began life as the third hull of the Yamato-class battleships, alongside the legendary Yamato and Musashi. These battleships were symbols of Japanese naval power, armed with the largest guns ever mounted on warships. But by 1942, Japan's naval doctrine was crumbling. The Battle of Midway had proven that aircraft carriers, not battleships, now ruled the seas. Japan lost 4 fleet carriers in a single day. The balance of power shifted permanently. Facing carrier shortages and relentless American production, Japanese planners made a radical decision. The unfinished battleship hull No. 110 would be converted into an aircraft carrier. Thus, Shinano was born. The largest aircraft carrier ever built. When completed, Shinano dwarfed everything around her. Displacement, over 72,000 tons fully loaded. Length, nearly 870 feet, 265 meters. Armor, thicker deck armor than most battleships. Crew, over 2,400 officers and sailors. But Shinano was not a conventional carrier. She was designed as a support carrier, a floating fortress meant to carry spare aircraft, transport fuel and ammunition, repair damaged planes from other carriers. Her armored flight deck was meant to resist bombs and torpedoes alike. Japanese engineers believed she could survive attacks that would sink ordinary carriers. However, there was a fatal problem. Shinano was rushed into service before she was ready. A ship that was not ready for war. By late 1944, American air raids on Japanese shipyards were relentless. Shinano was under constant threat while still under construction at Yokosuka Naval Arsenal. To avoid destruction at the dock, Japanese command ordered Shinano to sail immediately, despite the fact that many watertight compartments were incomplete. Internal bulkheads were not fully sealed. Crew training was rushed and inadequate. Damage control systems had never been properly tested. Even basic tasks like sealing ventilation shafts had been left unfinished. Still, on November 28, 1944, Shinano was declared operational. She would sail under cover of darkness to Kure, escorted by 3 destroyers. Her captain, Toshio Abe, knew the risks, but orders were orders. Shinano left port at 1800 hours, slipping into Tokyo Bay for her first voyage. She would never reach her destination. Enter USS Archerfish. Far from the Japanese coast, another vessel was on patrol. USS Archerfish, SS-311, was a Below-class submarine, sturdy, reliable, but unremarkable. She was not famous. She had no legendary commander. Her captain, Commander Joseph F. Enright, however, had something far more important: experience and patience. Earlier in the war, Enright had been relieved of command after a failed patrol. Many careers ended that way. But Enright returned, sharper, more cautious, and determined never to miss an opportunity again. By late November 1944, Archerfish was assigned patrol duty near the Japanese coast, watching shipping lanes and waiting for targets. No one aboard expected to encounter the largest aircraft carrier in history. A shadow in the dark. Shortly after midnight, Archerfish's radar operator noticed something strange. A large contact appeared, moving fast, far larger than any normal merchant ship. At first, Enright suspected a tanker or troop transport. But as Archerfish maneuvered closer, the scale became impossible to ignore. This was no ordinary ship. The silhouette that emerged against the faint moonlight was massive, impossibly massive. Enright realized the truth. They had found a major capital ship, escorted by destroyers, sailing close to the Japanese coast, confident and exposed. The hunter had found prey beyond anything he had imagined. And now, Archerfish began to follow. Part 2, The Hunt begins. The Long Shadow. For the next several hours, USS Archerfish stayed on the surface, shadowing the enormous Japanese ship from a distance. Commander Enright made a crucial decision. Rather than diving immediately and risking detection, he chose to trail Shinano on the surface, using the submarine's radar, a technological advantage the Japanese still struggled to counter effectively. Shinano was fast for her size, capable of nearly 27 knots, and her escorting destroyers zigzagged cautiously. But the night was dark, the sea calm, and the American submarine matched her movements with quiet precision. Aboard Shinano, the mood was tense but confident. This was supposed to be a secret voyage. Few in the Imperial Navy even knew the ship existed. Her captain believed American submarines would not dare operate so close to the Japanese coast. That belief would soon prove fatal. A flawed escort. Shinano's escort consisted of 3 destroyers, Isokes, Hamakes, and Yukikes. On paper, this seemed adequate. In reality, it was dangerously insufficient. Japan's destroyer fleet had been worn down by years of brutal combat. Many veteran crews were gone, replaced by hastily trained sailors. Fuel shortages limited training, and anti-submarine doctrine had not kept pace with American advances. Even worse, one of the destroyers soon developed engine trouble and fell behind. This forced Shinano to alter course and reduce speed, a move that made her far more vulnerable. Unaware that Archerfish was watching every turn, the Japanese formation slowly unraveled. The pursuit tightens. Enright now faced a difficult challenge. To attack such a massive target, Archerfish would need a perfect firing position. The escorts, though flawed, were still dangerous. A single detection could mean instant death for the submarine. For nearly 6 hours, Archerfish tracked Shinano, sometimes losing her in rain squalls, sometimes closing dangerously close. At one point, Shinano even turned toward Archerfish's position. For a tense moment, it seemed the carrier might ram the submarine. Enright ordered an emergency dive. Depth gauges ticked downward as Archerfish slipped beneath the surface. Sonar pings echoed above, but the Japanese escorts failed to locate her. Minutes later, Archerfish resurfaced, still undetected. The hunt continued. Inside the giant. While Archerfish stalked from the shadows, life aboard Shinano continued in uneasy routine. The ship was overcrowded, packed with shipyard workers, technicians, and crew who had never served together before. Many had barely learned the layout of the vessel. Watertight doors that should have been sealed remained open to allow easy movement. Ventilation shafts were incomplete. Damage control teams were untrained and understaffed. Shinano carried no aircraft of her own, only spare planes and equipment, making her enormous hangars hollow and echoing. Despite her size and armor, Shinano was not truly ready for battle. Yet no one aboard believed the ship was in immediate danger. They were wrong. A decision point. As dawn approached, Enright knew time was running out. If daylight came, Japanese aircraft could spot Archerfish. The opportunity would vanish. He decided to make the attack before sunrise, regardless of the risks. Archerfish maneuvered ahead of Shinano's projected course, diving to attack depth. The submarine crept into position, its crew silent, eyes fixed on instruments glowing faintly in the darkness. Through the periscope, Enright finally saw her clearly. Shinano filled the lens, a steel cliff sliding through the sea. This was no destroyer. No cruiser. This was something unprecedented. The perfect shot. At 3:15, Archerfish was in position. Enright ordered. Stand by, torpedo tubes 1 through 6. The range closed. The angle was ideal. The massive carrier loomed, unaware that death waited below. Enright took one final look through the periscope, and gave the command. Fire! Part 3, the torpedo strike. 6 silent killers. Inside USS Archerfish, time seemed to slow. One by one, 6 Mark 14 torpedoes left their tubes, slicing silently through the dark water. Each carried a warhead powerful enough to cripple a warship, and Shinano was about to face them all. Commander Enright did not expect every torpedo to hit. Against such a massive target, even 2 or 3 impacts would be a success. But fate, and Shinano's own vulnerabilities, had other plans. Impact. Minutes later, the ocean erupted. 4 torpedoes struck Shinano along her starboard side. The explosions were violent and unmistakable, sending towering columns of water and flame into the night sky. Steel plates buckled. Internal compartments shattered. Men were thrown from their feet. Inside Shinano, alarms screamed as the lights flickered. At first, Captain Abe believed the ship could survive. After all, Shinano was built with battleship-level armor. 4 torpedoes should not sink her. But almost immediately, reports from below told a different story. Water everywhere. The torpedoes had struck at devastatingly effective points. Because many watertight doors were open, flooding spread rapidly. Seawater rushed through unfinished compartments, pouring into spaces never meant to be connected. Damage control teams struggled to respond, but they had never practiced together, and many had never even seen the areas now flooding. Even worse, Shinano's captain made a critical decision. Fearing further submarine attacks, he ordered the ship to maintain speed. This proved disastrous. The forward motion forced water deeper into the hull, increasing flooding instead of containing it. The giant ship began to list. Confusion and denial. For hours, Shinano's officers argued about the severity of the damage. Some insisted the ship was stable. Others warned that the flooding was uncontrollable. Damage control pumps failed or were overwhelmed. Power flickered in several sections of the ship. Communication between compartments broke down. Still, Captain Abe believed Shinano could reach port. The destroyers circled nervously, dropping depth charges, but USS Archerfish was already gone, diving deep and slipping away into the Pacific. The hunter had escaped. The victim was now alone with her wounds. A losing battle. As the night gave way to early morning, Shinano's list increased dramatically. Water sloshed through unfinished compartments. Aircraft fuel lines ruptured. The ship's immense size, once a symbol of strength, now worked against her. Attempts to counterflood failed. Crew members struggled to understand orders in the chaos. Some compartments were abandoned entirely. The truth became impossible to ignore. The largest aircraft carrier ever built was dying. The final hours. By mid-morning, Shinano was listing over 20 degrees. Captain Abe finally gave the order to abandon ship. For many aboard, it was too late. As Shinano rolled further, lifeboats became unusable. Men leapt into the sea as the great carrier slowly capsized. At 10:57 a.m., less than 7 hours after being hit, Shinano slipped beneath the waves. She sank bow first into the deep Pacific, taking over 1,400 men with her. The largest aircraft carrier in history had been sunk by a single submarine. Part 4: Conclusion and Legacy. Why Shinano sank. On paper, Shinano should have survived. She was enormous. She was heavily armored. She had been built on the hull of a Yamato-class battleship, ships designed to absorb punishment unlike anything else afloat. But war does not forgive unfinished ships. Shinano sank not because she was weak, but because she was unready. The open watertight doors allowed flooding to spread uncontrollably. Unsealed ventilation shafts became channels for the sea. Damage control teams lacked training and coordination. Pumps were overwhelmed. Critical systems failed at the worst possible moment. Above all, the decision to maintain speed after the torpedo hit sealed her fate. Instead of stabilizing the flooding, it forced water deeper into the ship, increasing the list and accelerating the loss. In the end, Shinano was defeated not only by American torpedoes, but by haste, overconfidence, and desperation. The aftermath? The sinking of Shinano was kept secret by the Japanese government. Her existence had been one of the war's most closely guarded secrets, and admitting her loss would have been a devastating blow to morale. Families were told their loved ones had died in a training accident. The Imperial Japanese Navy quietly erased Shinano from public records. But American intelligence soon learned the truth. USS Archerfish had sunk the largest warship ever destroyed by a submarine. A quiet victory. Commander Joseph F. Enright returned from patrol a changed man. Once relieved of command earlier in the war, he was now recognized for one of the most extraordinary submarine victories in history. He was awarded the Navy Cross, and USS Archerfish received a Presidential Unit Citation. Yet there was no celebration. This was late 1944. The Pacific War still raged. Submariners knew that survival, not glory, was the real victory. What this meant for the war. Strategically, Shinano's loss came too late to change the outcome of World War II. But symbolically it was devastating. Shinano represented Japan's last hope of restoring carrier strength. Her sinking proved that even the most massive warships were vulnerable, especially when rushed into service. It also highlighted the growing dominance of submarine warfare. A single submarine, with patience, discipline, and good leadership, could destroy what entire fleets once required battleships to defeat. The legacy. Today, Shinano rests on the ocean floor, her exact location still uncertain. USS Archerfish, the modest submarine that hunted her, lives on in naval history as a reminder that size does not equal invincibility. This battle had no fleets, no grand formations, no thunderous broadsides, only silence, patience, and 4 torpedoes in the dark.